Hey guys, tonight we wake up somewhere hot, dry, and incredibly confusing. You're lying flat on your back in the dust of a noisy, sun-scorched alley. Your head's pounding, your tongue feels like sandpaper, and something just scurried over your foot. You sit up, and that's when it hits you. This isn't your bedroom, or your neighborhood, or even your century. The stench of camel dung and fried onions hits you first. Then the noise, the shout of merchants, the whine of a distant flute. A donkey brays somewhere close, and a group of barefoot children giggle as they dart past you, utterly unimpressed by your confused, pajama-clad presence. You stand up and brush your pants, then realize, no phone, no ID, no shoes, no idea what language that old man just shouted at you in. Welcome to medieval Egypt, specifically the 13th century, probably Fustat, right outside what would one day become Cairo. You're surrounded by tan mud brick buildings stacked like forgotten loaves of bread. Wooden lattice windows jut out overhead, casting lacy shadows on the dusty ground. A falcon squawks somewhere above you, because of course it does. You, my friend, are officially lost, and you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to hear where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Drop it in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The alley smells like warm sweat and spices. A man brushes past you, balancing a massive basket of bread on his head, muttering something in Arabic. You nod politely. He squints. His eyes narrow. He clearly knows you don't belong. And honestly, it's your own fault. You're standing like someone who's never seen dirt before. You flinch every time someone yells. You just tried to wave at a woman passing by, and she looked like she'd seen a demon. Fun fact, women in this era often kept their gazes low in public, especially around strangers, especially male ones. You've already broken 5 invisible rules, and it's only been 5 minutes. People around you are starting to stare. You back up. Fast. Your foot lands in a pile of something very organic and very unpleasant. You flinch. A kid points and laughs. You spin and duck into a side street. Maybe if you can find a landmark. A sign. A Starbucks? Nope. Just more walls and that endless, blinding sun. You squint up at the minaret above the rooftops, its spiral pattern like a frozen gust of wind, and try to orient yourself. The call to prayer hasn't started yet, but you know it's coming. You wonder if there's a way to ask for directions without sounding like an alien. You try anyway. You step toward a shop, mumble something that vaguely sounds like water, and point at your mouth. The shopkeeper eyes you like you've just insulted his ancestors. Moya, he offers in a thick accent. You nod. He hands you a cup of something. It smells like copper and sadness. You drink it. Mistake. Your stomach makes a sound like a dying accordion. And just like that, it begins. Your descent into the glorious chaos that is medieval Egyptian life. You have no idea what year it is. No concept of the politics. No social connections. No immunity to local bacteria. Also, no sunscreen. And the sun here does not play around. Historians still argue whether the people of 13th century Egypt were more tolerant or more suspicious of foreigners. The reality probably depended on your accent, your outfit, and how polite you were. You, unfortunately, sound like you've been dropped from the moon and dressed like you lost a bet. You pass a cluster of students huddled around an older man reading from a thick book. A madrasa, maybe. The students glance up. One of them says something and snickers. You keep walking. Your goal is simple. Survive the day. But even simple goals have medieval complications. For example, your clothes. You're wearing a printed t-shirt, maybe sweats. Everyone else is in linen or wool, robes or tunics, often with sandals. Your fabric screams synthetic. One man actually stops chewing his date to stare. There's also the matter of the smell. Not just the city's, but yours. No one here smells like deodorant. But you? You smell like coconut body spray and anxiety. The contrast is jarring. You turn a corner and walk straight into a camel. Like, face first into a camel's side. It sneezes. You gag. A boy holding its reins yells something at you and gestures wildly. You throw up your hands in apology. He scowls, then laughs. You back away slowly, rounding the next corner, heart pounding. So far you've embarrassed yourself, insulted a shopkeeper, possibly cursed in someone's direction, and been slimed by a camel. A new personal best. Still, not everything is terrifying. There's beauty here too, dusty but real. The tiled doorways, the colorful silks hanging in shop fronts, the sound of a flute playing somewhere. The stray cats lounging like royalty, the sun painting everything gold. And just when you think you might actually be okay, you spot a man staring at you from across the square. Not curious, not amused, just staring. His robe is cleaner than most. His beard is trimmed, and he's not blinking. You turn, walk fast, duck into another alley, and suddenly you realize you have no idea who has power here, or what the rules are, or what happens when you break them. But you're about to find out. Your stomach gurgles again, loudly. It's been, what, hours since you woke up in this sand-baked labyrinth? You're starving, and not in the casual I skipped lunch way. This is primal, survival-level hunger. You start scanning for food like a cartoon wolf sniffing out pies on windowsills. The scent of something greasy and possibly delicious floats your way. You follow it. Eventually, you stumble into a crowded little square that smells like charcoal, meat, and too many people in too tight a space. It's loud. It's sweaty. It's perfect. You approach what seems to be a food vendor, more of a guy with a grill and opinions. He's flipping flatbreads with a bare hand that looks like it's been through several wars. You step up and try your best universal sign language. Point at your stomach, then at the food. He eyes you. You get the feeling this is about more than payment. But hunger wins. You smile awkwardly and point again. He sighs, mutters something in Arabic, and slaps down a steaming wad of meat between two pieces of bread. The grease is dripping. The smell is intoxicating. You hand him a credit card. He stares at it like it's a cursed artifact. You mutter sorry and fumble through your pockets. Nothing but lint and a cough drop. He starts to wave you away. Then, a minor miracle. A woman in a dark blue robe watching from the edge of the stall speaks softly to the vendor. He hesitates, then shrugs and hands you the food. She gives you a tiny nod. You mumble, shukran, which is probably the only Arabic word you half remember from that one app you downloaded and never opened again. You sink down on a low step and take a bite, and instantly regret everything. The meat is tougher than regret. It's spiced with something your taste buds weren't designed for. There's a hint of mystery funk that suggests it may have once been goat, or possibly vengeance. But worst of all, the bread, oh, the bread, is soaked in oil that's either days old or simply hasn't been invented yet in your timeline. Your body reacts like you've eaten a burning tire, but you're too hungry to stop. You eat the whole thing. A cat watches you from a few feet away with a mixture of pity and judgment. You throw it a crumb. It sniffs it, walks away. You're about to lick your fingers when a gust of hot air brings a new wave of street smells. Some familiar, many not. Nearby, a man selling pickled lemons from a wooden cart. Another is ladling something that smells aggressively fermented into clay bowls. Your instincts are screaming no. But the locals? They're slurping it down like it's comfort food. Historians still argue whether the average medieval Cairene had a balanced diet. It mostly depended on your social class. Bread was the staple, and legumes like lentils and chickpeas were everywhere. Meat? Rare and often questionable. Spices were expensive. Salt was sacred. And refrigeration, well, let's just say your leftovers were the neighborhood's next bacterial experiment. The woman who spoke up for you earlier? She's still there, watching. She lifts her hand slightly. A quiet wave of sympathy, caution. Either way, you nod in return, stomach swirling like a medieval washing machine. And then it begins. You feel a tightening, a pressure, a warning siren going off in your intestines. You stand up, Fast. There are no public restrooms in medieval Fustet. People made do, often with buckets, sometimes with privacy, rarely with either. You ask a nearby boy, pantomiming the international symbol for bathroom emergency, which looks like a bad dance move. He laughs and runs off. Not helpful. You pace in a circle. Options are dwindling. You spy a dark alley. It's your only hope. You duck into it, hoping for a miracle, and nearly trip over a sleeping goat. You take 2 steps back, apologize to the goat, and clutch your stomach. Everything in your modern digestive system is staging a revolt. You think of Pepto-Bismol, Tumps, even a gas station toilet. All luxuries lost to time. It's worth noting that sanitation in medieval Egypt wasn't the worst. Cities like Fustet had rudimentary sewage systems in wealthier districts, and some buildings even had internal drains. But you're not in one of those buildings. You're in the part of town where people empty chamber pots out of second-story windows and yell "watch out" only if they're feeling polite. Eventually, blessedly, you find a secluded spot and deal with your situation. It's humbling. It's horrifying. You emerge a different person. You stagger back into the street, pale and sweating. A nearby old woman offers you a sprig of mint. You take it, nod, and chew it slowly, hoping for some kind of magical reset. It helps. A little. To distract yourself, you wander toward another vendor selling fruit. Figs, dates, pomegranates. Things that don't scream immediate gastrointestinal regret. You point at a fig, mime the universal "how much" gesture. He says something in Arabic. It sounds like two. You pretend to understand and hand him an imaginary coin. He frowns. Currency in medieval Egypt is a mess. There are dinars, dirhams, fowls, all made of different metals and wildly fluctuating in value. You have none of them. You resort to puppy dog eyes. He sighs and hands you the figure. It's sweet, ripe, and warm from the sun. You sit on a stone ledge and savor it. Behind you, someone yells, and you instinctively duck. But it's just a group of men arguing about something involving sheep and trade routes. You think. One of them is chewing a piece of sugarcane like it owes him money. The sun is climbing now, blinding white in the sky. Shade is precious. The street vendors are pulling cloth awnings tighter. You realize, belatedly, that dehydration is setting in. You need water. Safe water. Which is complicated. People here usually drink from clay jugs called zur, water filtered through charcoal and stored cool in porous pottery. Or, more dangerously, straight from the Nile. And the Nile? Not exactly Evian. Let's just say there's a reason why so much wine and barley beer were consumed instead. You spot a young man carrying a jug. You point, mouth water. He shrugs and hands you a sip. It's tepid, slightly gritty, but miraculously doesn't kill you instantly. You thank him with a nod, and he flashes you a grin full of crooked teeth and hospitality. But your stomach still isn't happy. You sit down again, watching the street swirl with life. The smells, the sounds, the colors, all of it beautiful, and utterly indifferent to your suffering. And then a donkey sneezes on you. Again. You're still trying to wipe donkey snot off your arm when a new realization hits you. You need help. Actual, human help. Someone who can maybe explain where you are, why you've been mistaken for the town lunatic, and, just maybe, how to avoid getting accidentally executed before dinner. So you start doing what any lost modern traveler might try. You look for someone friendly looking. A guide. A kind soul. An information booth, if you're wildly optimistic. But remember, you're in 13th century Fustet. There are no tourist guides. And unfortunately, you stand out like a glow stick at a candlelit vigil. Let's break this down. You don't speak Arabic. You've already committed at least 6 minor social faux pas. And your very existence seems to confuse everyone. You might as well be wearing a sign that says "I am a mystical threat to civilization." It's not helping. You approach a group of women sitting near the side of the road, spinning thread and chatting softly. You try to gesture, "Help me." Lost. Confused. Probably cursed. They stop talking. One of them pulls her veil a little tighter. Another stands up slowly. Oops. You forgot. Unaccompanied men approaching women in public is not a great look, especially when you appear to be some kind of barefoot prophet. You back away, bowing apologetically. They whisper. One giggles nervously. You trip over a chicken and flee the scene with the elegance of a greased-up goat. Historians still argue whether medieval Egyptian society was more rigid or more flexible about gender norms in public. What's clear is that your understanding of just asking for directions doesn't quite translate. So you try again. This time, you approach a man. He's seated beneath an awning, grinding something that smells like cardamom in a mortar. He eyes you as you wave awkwardly and say, "Salam." He nods slowly. Progress. You make another attempt. Pantomime "I'm lost," then shrug, then point around. He listens, head tilted, then says something that sounds warm, but completely unintelligible. He smiles, makes a circling motion with his hand, and points vaguely north. You smile, nod back, and thank him, and promptly walk the wrong way. 5 minutes later, you're back where you started, having wandered in a full loop. You recognize that goat. The cat gives you a judgmental look of déjà vu. You sigh and plop down near a mud brick wall, defeated. The sun is still hammering you like a celestial blacksmith, and the back of your neck feels like bacon on a griddle. And then, you hear them. Footsteps. Deliberate. Clinking. Someone in armor. Maybe? You look up, and sure enough, here comes trouble. It's a man on horseback, flanked by 2 attendants, his robe embroidered with gold thread and his beard oiled to perfection. He's scanning the street with the world-weariness of someone who owns everything he sees, and maybe taxed it twice. His gaze lands on you. He frowns. You stand too quickly. His horse snorts. You smile nervously, mouth dry. He says something sharp. His attendant steps toward you. You try to explain, but your words are a jumble of nervous mumbles and confused vowels. The attendant looks at your clothes, then at your shoes, or lack thereof, then at your face, and that's when you hear it. A new voice, off to the side, muttering something that includes the word jinn. Great. Someone thinks you're possessed. Or a spirit. Or both. This is spiraling. You hold up your hands like, "Hey now, let's all just take a breath." But that gesture? Not universal. The guard raises an eyebrow and rests a hand on his scabbard. You back up. A child tugs on your sleeve and says something excitedly. You nod at her, because why not? She giggles and runs off, yelling something you're sure doesn't help. And now the nobleman's definitely curious. He says a single word to his attendants. One of them reaches for you, not aggressively, more like he's about to escort you somewhere, which might be good, or might be dungeon-related. But before he can touch you, a voice calls out from across the street. It's the same older woman from earlier, the one who helped you with the food stall. She says something loud and confident. The guard hesitates. The nobleman glances her way, then waves dismissively. You exhale. Deeply. The guards back off. You shoot her a grateful look. She doesn't smile, just nods, once, and turns away. You owe her your life. Probably. Medieval Egypt was surprisingly bureaucratic, and justice varied wildly based on class, accusation, and the mood of the people in charge. Foreigners, especially ones without money, reputation, or connections. Yeah, not a great position. And while historians debate whether average people truly feared outsiders or simply found them amusing, one thing's certain, you are not blending in. Every time you open your mouth, it's like yelling, "Hey, I'm lost and unvaccinated." So you decide to go with Plan B, avoid further human contact. You wander away from the square, toward a quieter street. There's a low stone wall and a bit of shade, so you sit. Try to breathe. Try to not get arrested. That's when an old man shuffles by and pauses. He eyes you, then says, in perfect French accented Arabic, something like, "You've had a day, haven't you?" You stare. He chuckles. Don't look so shocked. You're not the first time-lost soul I've seen. Wait, what? But before you can respond, he's already moving again. Whistling. His robe billows behind him like a wizard on vacation. You scramble to your feet and follow, but he's gone. Vanished. Just dust and laughter left behind. You blink. Rub your face. Maybe the food is finally messing with your brain. Or maybe, just maybe, you're not entirely alone in this. But for now, the city goes on. Buzzing, clattering, ignoring you completely. And you're still very, very lost. You wander deeper into the tangle of sun-drenched alleyways, shoes still absent, stomach still doing somersaults. Somewhere in the back of your head, you keep thinking about that strange old man, the one who might have recognized your very particular flavor of confusion. But he's gone, vanished like your cell phone signal, your dignity, and your last thread of modern convenience. So now, you've got a new problem. You're in the wrong part of town. You can tell by the smell. The air has shifted from roasted meat and donkey sweat to something sharper, metallic, smoky, and unsettling. You've stumbled into a craftsman's quarter, where men shout over hammers, and the sun bounces off bronze plates and blades like angry fireflies. You step carefully, trying not to make eye contact or accidentally interrupt someone sharpening a scimitar. A blacksmith's apprentice glares at you from behind a cloud of smoke. He's got the soot-smeared arms of someone who spent his life pounding hot metal with a purpose. And you, the barefoot, babbling outsider, look like a walking insult to his trade. Historians agree that craftsmanship in medieval Egypt was highly specialized and deeply respected. Metalworkers, carpenters, glassblowers, they weren't just tradesmen. They were artists, often organized into strict guilds. Competition was fierce, and turf was sacred. If you looked like you didn't belong, odds were, you didn't. A man emerges from a low doorway, carrying what appears to be a bundle of swords. Just casual. No big deal. He sees you, pauses, then barks something at the apprentice. They both laugh, and you don't need to understand the words to know you're the punchline. You offer a weak grin and continue walking. The buildings here are tall and narrow, their upper stories leaning inward like they're gossiping about you. Laundry flaps overhead. You dodge a falling sock. The streets get narrower, hotter. You duck under a low arch, step into a courtyard, and immediately realize your mistake. This isn't a public space. It's a private one. The woman scrubbing clothes at a stone basin freezes when she sees you. Her eyes widen. Then she screams. Not out of fear, more like outrage. You've just wandered into someone's medieval laundry room, which, incidentally, doubles as her private sanctuary. She shouts something that includes a very aggressive gesture involving a slipper. You backpedal, babbling apologies in English, which does not help. A younger man appears, maybe her son, maybe someone with access to very pointy objects, and you wisely bolt. You trip over a basket. Land in a puddle that's 80% water, 20% you don't want to know. Your clothes now smell like soap and humiliation. Somewhere nearby, a rooster crows. Late. Unhelpful. You duck around another corner and finally find a less threatening corner. Quiet, shaded, lined with worn sandstone benches. You collapse onto one, panting. A vendor nearby is selling clay water jugs, carefully stacked in a tower that defies physics. You wave, gesture to your throat. He shrugs, points at a coin purse. You nod like you totally understand and give him a button. He does not accept the button. You stare at him. He stares at you. The tension could sharpen knives. Eventually, a child watching from the shadows comes forward with a single copper fowls and drops it in the man's hand. She says something that sounds scolding. The vendor huffs, fills a cup with warm, slightly cloudy water, and hands it to you. You nod in grateful wonder. The girl looks at you with narrowed eyes and mutters something that sounds suspiciously like, "You're a mess." She's not wrong. You sip. It's not delicious, but it doesn't immediately try to kill you either. Progress. You lean back and finally take in the slower rhythm of the city here. The tap of leather sandals on stone, the creak of wood from a cart turning a corner, the clink of pottery, and the high-pitched bargaining of two old women arguing over the price of onions. Everything is busy, but deliberate. You spot a man painting Arabic calligraphy on a hanging sign. His movements are smooth, elegant, almost hypnotic. Every line, every curve feels sacred. You watch in silence. This, at least, is something you recognize: beauty, purpose, maybe even peace. But don't get too comfy, because your break is short-lived. Soon, two men in uniform, scarves tied tight, wooden batons swinging lightly from their belts, turn the corner. They aren't soldiers, but they've got the look of civic enforcers. Municipal muscle. Medieval mall cops, if you will. One spots you, elbows his partner. They mutter. You freeze. They approach slowly, sizing you up. And let's face it, you look weird. Damp. Dirt-streaked. Foreign. Possibly cursed. You try a smile. It does not land. They say something. You shrug. They repeat it. One gestures to your clothes. Then to your bare feet. Then to your mouth. They're probably asking who you are, why you're here, and if you're about to cause problems. You gesture vaguely. Tourist, you offer. No reaction. The younger one pulls out a small piece of parchment and what looks like a reed pen. Starts scribbling. This is either a warning or a fine. Historians still argue whether local enforcers were empowered to detain vagrants or simply shame them out of the neighborhood. Either way, you're dangerously close to being escorted somewhere unpleasant. You nod, back away slowly, then pretend to remember something urgent in the opposite direction and start walking, fast. They don't follow, but your heart's hammering. Your luck is thinning. You duck down another street, this one narrower, shadier. And there, thank the timeline gods, you spot a low building with a painted sign. Something like a school or study house. A madrasa, maybe? You peek inside. A young man is reading aloud in a melodic voice, surrounded by scrolls and wax tablets. It's beautiful. Soothing. You linger at the door, invisible for once. Maybe you've found a corner of peace. But then the teacher turns, notices you, and raises one eyebrow. "May I help you?" he asks in perfect, British-accented English. Your jaw drops. He chuckles. "Not the first lost soul to wander in here. Come in, but take off your shoes first." You glance down at your bare feet, then look up. He smiles. "Right. Of course. Come on anyway." And for the first time today, you feel, maybe not safe, but less doomed. You step tentatively into the madrasa, the door creaking behind you like a theater curtain closing on Act 1. Confused idiot in the street. The shift from outside to in is almost overwhelming. Cooler air, filtered light from slatted windows, and the faint scent of parchment and ink mixing with old wood and incense. You're used to the ambient noise of traffic and air conditioning. Here, it's the soft crackle of candle wax and the rhythmic murmur of Arabic scripture recited from memory. Your unlikely savior, the multilingual teacher, gestures for you to sit on a woven mat near the corner. The students, ranging in age from wide-eyed kids to grizzled adults, eye you with curiosity but not fear. You sit, cross-legged, trying to keep still and small, and very aware that you still smell like panic and puddle water. The teacher returns to his seat, adjusts his robe, and says, "You're not from here." Which may be the understatement of the century. You nod. Then, because you're not sure what else to say, you blurt, "I'm from the future." He squints, then lets out a soft, disbelieving laugh. "Well, then you're either mad or a poet. Maybe both." He grins. "Then you'll fit in. This is a school, yes, but also a refuge. We learn, we write, we debate, and sometimes we shelter oddities." He tosses you a small linen cloth. "Wipe your face." You do, grateful for the gesture and the hospitality. Here's the thing. Education in medieval Egypt was more widespread than most people think. Scholars, especially those connected to religious institutions, were respected. Libraries flourished, and Cairo, in particular, was a hotbed of philosophical and theological debate. But it wasn't all high-minded discourse. There were rivalries, factions, occasionally, chairs thrown in the name of jurisprudence. Historians still argue whether madrasa students were mostly from elite families or if commoners could work their way in through talent and luck. One thing's for sure, If you're sitting on the floor next to a scroll, you're already closer to safety than you were 20 minutes ago. The teacher's name is Yahya. He tells you he studied in Alexandria, debated in Damascus, and once watched a man memorize an entire volume of law just to win a wager. He's full of stories, like a medieval Morgan Freeman. And something about his vibe says he's seen weirder things than a time-displaced weirdo with missing footwear. So, he says, "Why are you here?" You open your mouth. Close it. Then gesture vaguely. "Accident." He nods, like that's a reasonable answer. Well, accidents are divine instructions in disguise. Another student groans. You say that every time someone falls off a roof. Yahya waves him off. Wisdom isn't always original. As the lesson resumes, you lean back, listening to the cadence of Arabic being read aloud, some of it explained in plain terms. It's not just religion here, they're discussing ethics, astronomy, even medicine. One student is correcting a passage about Galen's humoral theory, which, fun fact, dominated medieval medical thought for centuries. You suppress a grin. You read that on Wikipedia once. That counts, right? And then someone hands you a slate. You blink at it. It's been years since you held actual chalk, and your first attempt at writing looks like an earthworm's EKG. Still, you try. Your name. A wobbly hello. Then you try to draw a clock. Someone laughs softly. Another student leans over and mimics the circle with numbers. They point. Sare, someone says. Hour. You nod eagerly. Yes. Time. Time machine. This causes a flurry of conversation. Half the students are now theorizing what you mean. One draws a wheel. Another, a ship. A third sketches something suspiciously like a catapult. You attempt a sketch of a digital watch. It comes out looking like a rectangular sheep. One girl squints at it. Is that a coffin? Close enough. Eventually, Yahya holds up his hand and quiets the room. Our guest is strange. Yes. But strangeness is the twin of knowledge. If nothing else, let's show hospitality. You think about that for a second. Then, half joking, you ask, know where I can find a toilet? The room erupts in laughter. Ah yes, sanitation. A topic you hadn't really considered until now. Yahya leads you to a small side chamber behind the school. The hammam is public, he explains, but this is for students. He shows you a corner, a hole in the stone floor, surrounded by surprisingly clean tiles. A jar of water sits nearby. You stare at it for a second too long. Yahya grins. Let me guess. In the future, people pay to sit. Actually, yeah. He shakes his head. Madness. You do your business as quickly as possible, then pour water as demonstrated, praying you're doing it correctly. You exit with the quiet dignity of someone who has survived a mildly traumatic experience. Outside, the day is beginning to dim. The light shifts to a deeper gold. Shadows grow longer. The city is beginning its slow exhale into evening. And your body is, very gradually, remembering how to unclench. You thank Yahya with as much sincerity as your tired face can express. He waves it off. You're welcome here. But be careful. Not everyone enjoys riddles with shoes missing. You glance down again. Still barefoot. Still hopeless. Yahya hands you a pair of sandals. Worn, a little too big, but 1,000 times better than nothing. A student left them behind. Let them take you somewhere new. You slide them on, bow slightly, and step back into the street. And just as you do, a cry goes up from a nearby market. Shouting. A crowd forms. Someone says, "The crocodile is back." You pause. Crocodile? You sprint toward the noise, sandals flapping. Because if there's one thing that perfectly represents how not ready you are for this world, it's the concept of urban crocodiles. You push your way through the swelling crowd, sandals slapping awkwardly against the dusty street, barely keeping up with the rising tide of excitement and panic. People shout over one another in rapid-fire Arabic, arms waving, baskets toppling. Someone's live chicken escaping dramatically underfoot like it's been waiting its whole life for this moment. At first, You think maybe it's a figure of speech. The crocodile is back. Like saying, the taxman's here or Uncle Farid's had too much date wine again. But then you hear it. A low, guttural huff. A sound no mammal makes. And then you see it. Crawling just beneath the overhang of a nearby stall, half shaded in gold and dust, is an actual, honest-to-Anubis crocodile. Not some baby reptile either. This one is full-grown, tail swishing with slow menace, eyes half-lidded like it owns the entire province. Its scales are caked in dirt, its belly swollen, and it walks like someone who's gotten away with a lot and expects to continue doing so. You freeze. Everyone else instinctively backs away except for one guy, shirtless, sinewy, sun-scorched, who walks right up to the creature holding what looks like a giant fish head on a stick. Crocodile man, apparently. He mutters to the beast in a low voice, something between a lullaby and a threat. Then, casually, he tosses the fish head toward a large reed basket, and the crocodile, unbelievably, follows it in. The basket slams shut. Rope flies. The crowd erupts into cheers. You are deeply, cosmically confused. Turns out, crocodiles weren't exactly house pets in medieval Egypt, but they weren't unheard of either. Particularly in the south, near Aswan, the Nile's ancient reptiles still roamed wild. Some even made their way into religious contexts, embalmed, mummified, placed in tombs like royal companions. And yes, there are records, quirky, rare, often debated, of crocodile handlers who tamed these beasts for entertainment or religious processions. Historians still argue whether these handlers were respected professionals or just slightly unhinged men with good reflexes. In this case, a little of both. Crocodile Man slings the now-thrashing basket over his shoulder like it's a sack of turnips, waves to the crowd, and shouts something that earns a round of laughter. You don't catch the words, but based on the tone, it was probably something along the lines of, "You're welcome, peasants." The crowd disperses. Life resumes. And you are left standing in the middle of the square wondering how anyone here functions without a panic button or animal control hotline. But somehow, they do. You wander back into the side streets, feeling the weight of the day now, emotionally, physically, and definitely olfactorily. Your stomach gives another protest. You've managed to survive barefoot wanderings, mistaken trespassing, and a crocodile parade. But you're running dangerously low on calories. You need food. Real food. Not dried figs or borrowed water or that weird puff of air that came out of the parchment scroll. And then, like a divine joke, the smell hits you. Spiced meat. Roasting garlic. Honey-glazed something. You follow it. Around a bend, nestled between two half-collapsed buildings, is a food stall lit by hanging lanterns. There's a clay oven glowing red, flatbread puffing inside like magic pillows, and skewers of meat sizzling on bronze grills. Behind the counter is a woman with arms like tree trunks and an eyebrow that could cut glass. She's cooking like she's conducting an orchestra. You point to one of everything. She doesn't blink, just holds up 4 fingers. Ah, payment. You search your tunic. Pockets empty. The button's long gone. You mime your dilemma. She sighs, then mutters something to the man beside her. He glances at you, shrugs, and hands you a small jug and a wide brush. Then points at the wall behind the stall. You blink. They want you to paint. You stare at the jug. Dip the brush. It's thick with natural pigment, charcoal and crushed beetle shell. Maybe? You start drawing a crude version of the scene before you. Meat, bread, a crocodile for spice. A few passers-by stop to watch. A child giggles. The eyebrow lady squints at your work and, miraculously, nods. 10 minutes later, you're eating like a sultan. Flatbread warm enough to melt your worries. Lamb seasoned with cumin, coriander, and something unidentifiable but undeniably magical. A sticky dessert that tastes like someone dipped a thunderstorm in honey. You eat fast. Not because you're in a rush, but because you suddenly remember what happiness tastes like. And in this moment, surrounded by strangers, oil smoke, and the hum of early evening chatter, you don't feel so hopelessly out of place. A small boy beside you burps proudly. His mother scolds him. You smile. You still smell faintly of fear and crocodile sweat, but you're fed. sandaled. And nobody's tried to arrest you in over an hour. The sky darkens. Not in a scary way, in that soft, velvet way that cities slip into night when everyone's paying more attention to their plates than the stars. Lanterns flicker to life, casting golden halos over mud brick walls and the sheen of a copper kettle. Somewhere down the alley, someone plays a stringed instrument. Maybe a rebab, its notes slow and wandering, like they're testing the air for dreams. You lean back against the wall, full, exhausted, overwhelmed, and, for just a minute, content. Which is, of course, when the woman beside you casually says, "You'll need to find somewhere to sleep." You blink. Of course. You can't just wander the streets all night. Cairo may be full of stories and songs, but it also has thieves, wild dogs, suspicious monks, and probably more reptiles. You stand, thank her awkwardly, and step back into the flickering maze of night. Sleep. Shelter. Some kind of roof. That's your next mission. Too bad you have no idea where to begin. The streets of medieval Cairo at night are not quiet. You were hoping for sleepy, empty alleys and a peaceful moonlit stroll. Maybe the distant hoot of an owl and a gentle breeze to complete the bedtime postcard. Instead, the city seems to vibrate with late-hour energy. Vendors are still shouting their wares: dried dates, incense cones, hot chickpeas in little clay bowls. Kids dart between carts playing chase, and clusters of neighbors sit on stoops gossiping in voices that bounce off stone walls. You feel like the only person who doesn't know where he's going. Your stomach is full, your legs are tired, and the sandals, generous though they are, have started to blister your modern-day soles. You round a corner and start to look at doorways with a slightly new desperation. Not in the "could I rent this" kind of way, more in the "how illegal would it be to nap here unnoticed" kind of way. You try to lean against a wall for a moment's rest. It smells like fish and regret. Nope. You move on. Shelter in medieval Egypt wasn't just about four walls and a door. For the average Cairene, home was a layered experience. Rooftops for sleeping in the summer, courtyards for shared meals, and sometimes several generations stuffed into one home. The wealthy had luxuries like mashrabiyah windows and private bathhouses. The poor had, well, corners, basically. Historians still argue whether the majority of the urban population slept indoors year-round or made more creative use of public space, especially in the warmer months. Some alleys were unofficial sleeping zones. Others? Let's just say you'd wake up missing more than your sandals. A man hauling a basket of eels brushes past you, muttering something about lazy dogs and sky watchers. You're not sure what it means, but you definitely feel judged. Finally, you spot a familiar shape, rounded arches and the gentle glow of lamps. A kanka. It's not a term you're familiar with, but you recall Yahya mumbling something about it earlier. A kind of Sufi lodge. A place where mystics and wanderers might sleep, pray, debate the nature of the universe, and occasionally give you the side eye. You push open the wooden gate, carefully, and step inside. Soft carpets. Lanterns shaped like stars. Incense coils hanging from beams. The smell is warm and strange, sandalwood and goat hair. There's a low hum of conversation in a back room. A few men sit in meditation, eyes closed, breathing in that practiced way that suggests they are simultaneously contemplating the nature of the soul and trying not to think about laundry. You clear your throat. One of them, a man in his 40s with a beard like a physics professor and eyes that say, "I've been awake for 4 days straight," looks up. "You're not a dervish," he says gently. "Not officially," you offer. "But I am definitely drifting." He considers this, then gestures for you to sit. And just like that, you've found a place. Not a bed, exactly, but a space on a woven mat under a carved ceiling, between a humming man and a sleeping cat. You lower yourself down. Try not to make noise. Your limbs sigh with relief. But sleep doesn't come yet. Because they're talking. And the conversation is fascinating. They're discussing the kalb, the heart, not the anatomical one, but the spiritual core of a person. Whether it can be purified, reshaped, or lost. One man argues that every soul has a compass pointing back to God, but some people cover it with too many layers of ego. Another says the compass is broken from the start and must be fixed by a teacher. You lie there, quietly absorbing the rhythm. It's mesmerizing, half philosophy, half lullaby. Someone begins to chant softly, verses from the Koran. The recitation curls through the air like smoke. Not loud, not performative, just deeply peaceful. And then a younger voice pipes up. What if someone comes from a time where hearts are all confused? Where people look at tiny glass boxes all day instead of other humans? Everyone turns. Yes, he's talking about you. You sit up. Slowly. The bearded man nods toward you. Is that true? You pause. How do you even begin? You try. Where I come from, we don't really sit in rooms like this. We don't talk much about hearts. We talk about money, status, speed. Speed. We try to get everything fast. Food, news, relationships. We think faster means better. Someone in the back snorts. Beard man tilts his head. And are you better? You look around. At the cat curled up like a punctuation mark. At the flickering shadows on the plaster walls. At the quiet rhythm of people who've given their lives to stillness. You shake your head. No, I don't think so. They nod. Not smugly. Just like it makes sense. Beard man smiles. Then rest. Maybe your heart just needed new weather. You lie back down. This time, with your face turned toward the carved wooden beams above. Sleep begins to lap at your thoughts, gentle and slow. And just as you're drifting off, someone slides a folded piece of linen under your head like a pillow. It smells faintly of cloves. Your last thought before sleep takes you is that maybe, just maybe, you'll survive another day. Unless, of course, someone mistakes you for a thief before dawn. Sleep, when it finally comes, is deep but skittish, like a nervous cat curling beside you but always ready to bolt. You drift somewhere between dreams and the hard floor, your body twitching every time a whisper echoes or a cat pads by your mat. It's not exactly the plush, climate-controlled cocoon of your modern bed, but it's warm, and nobody's tried to sacrifice you to a sun god yet. So, win? Morning arrives like a slap. Not figuratively. A real slap. To your shoulder. You jolt awake and find yourself blinking into the weathered face of the same bearded mystic who welcomed you last night. He doesn't look angry. More like practical. You overslept, he says. You look around. The room is empty except for you and the cat, who gives you a look that says, you were never cut out for this. The sun is already angling sharply through the mashrabiyah windows, scattering golden latticework across the wall. Outside, Cairo is awake and loud. Again. You sit up. Stretch. Something pops in your back with an alarming crunch. What time is it? Beard man shrugs. Time for you to learn something. Vague. Concerning. But fine. You gather your tunic and sandals and shuffle after him, still half asleep and very aware that you haven't brushed your teeth in. Let's not count. He leads you to a wide courtyard where a few other wanderers and residents of the Kanka are assembling, some stretching, others setting up stools and writing boards. The scent of ink and warm parchment wafts over the stone. You hear the soft rustle of quills, the occasional muttered verse, and, yep, someone chanting multiplication tables. You're in a madrasa. Medieval Cairo was a hotbed of intellectual life. Education wasn't just for the elite. Even tradesmen sent their sons, and sometimes daughters in rare cases, to learn at religious schools. These madrasas often combined Quranic instruction with astronomy, grammar, logic, and even medicine. Think less Hogwarts and more Oxford in a dusty alley with goats occasionally crashing the lectures. Historians still debate how standardized these institutions really were. Some argue that curricula varied wildly depending on the school, the teacher, and whether the scribe had spilled ink all over the reference texts again. You're handed a blank tablet, a reed pen, and a tiny pot of ink. Today, grammar, someone announces cheerfully. The 72 forms of the triliteral root. You try not to scream. Arabic, beautiful and complex, does not care about your modern brain. Every word branches like a family tree, morphing in patterns that feel less like a language and more like a logic puzzle with cultural consequences. You scratch out letters, get corrected. Try again. Smudge your work. Get corrected again. Your tutor sighs. Not out of frustration, more like pity. And then he leans in and whispers, "You write like someone who's only ever touched a glowing rock." You blink. What? He clarifies. Like someone who doesn't know patience. Touché. You work at it for what feels like hours, sweat beading on your brow as you chase consonants and vowels across the tablet. Occasionally you hear laughter from more competent students. One boy, maybe 12, winks at you like you're the class clown. Great. You're losing to a preteen in a turban. But slowly, something clicks. Not fluency. Not even understanding. Just rhythm. You start to feel the structure, like bones beneath the skin of the language. The way roots ripple outward into nouns, verbs, metaphors. You write a simple sentence, "The bird flew over the river," and the tutor actually nods. Small victories. You break for a meal, flatbread and lentils, and gather in the courtyard again, where another instructor introduces the topic of the day, hygiene. Finally. Something you've been quietly panicking about since you landed in this dusty dimension. Medieval Egyptians were shockingly clean by historical standards. In fact, if there's one area where they judge your 21st century lifestyle, it might be your 10-hour screen days and twice-weekly showers. Public bathhouses, or hammams, dotted the city. Some were grand and tiled, others were humble and tucked behind mosques, but all were built around the idea that cleanliness wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. You're led to one such hammam, tucked beside a spice market that smells like cumin, dried roses, and ambition. The bathhouse itself is dim and warm, filled with steam and laughter. Men scrub themselves with loofahs that look like medieval torture devices. There's clay soap, stone basins, buckets of water both blessedly hot and dangerously cold. You strip down, awkwardly, and join them. You're exfoliated with extreme prejudice by a man named Jamil who insists that modern skin is soft like almond paste. You're pretty sure he's both complimenting and insulting you. He slaps water onto your back with such force it echoes like a gong. You emerge, eventually, cleaner than you've ever been. Also mildly bruised and somehow shinier. One man hands you a cloth robe. Another offers a cup of spiced water. You sip and sink onto a warm tile bench. This, you decide, is luxury. A different kind of luxury than what you're used to. No Bluetooth speakers or aromatherapy diffusers. But here, among warm tiles, murmured prayers, and the distant calls of the muezzin, there's something else. Presence. No distractions. No notifications. Just the sound of your own breath and the feeling of being here. Fully. It's weirdly overwhelming. You blink away tears, tell yourself it's the steam, and drift into a semi-meditative state where the weight of modern life, deadlines, group chats, global anxiety, melts off your bones like the day's sweat. Eventually, someone nudges your foot. "Come," says Beard Man, "you've survived grammar and exfoliation. Let's see how you handle commerce." You groan, but rise. What could possibly go wrong at a medieval market? You already know the answer. Everything. The market is, in a word, chaos. But it's beautiful chaos. The kind of place you want to get lost in, but not too lost, because you're not entirely sure how to get out if you need to. It's one of the larger bazaars in Cairo, nestled under the shadow of a mosque with tall minarets piercing the blue sky. The air is thick with the scent of roasting meat, fresh bread, and spices you can't even name. The chatter is a constant hum, like the city itself is vibrating to a rhythm that only the locals can understand. You follow Beard Man as he weaves through the labyrinth of stalls, where merchants shout over each other to sell everything from exotic perfumes and fine silks to carpets woven with intricate patterns that seem to tell stories from forgotten times. Overhead, a series of colored fabric canopies stretch, offering a little relief from the midday sun, but the heat still presses against your skin like a heavy blanket. The clamor of bargaining voices is punctuated by the occasional shrill call of a hawker selling something clearly not as valuable as it's being advertised. "Here," Beard Man says, pointing to a stall overflowing with carpaware. A tall, burly man with an intricate beard stands behind it, cleaning a set of plates with a damp cloth, all while keeping one eye on the crowd. The metal gleams like 100 captured suns. You take a hesitant step forward, already feeling out of place. Here, a foreigner without a purpose, without a skill, just someone stumbling through someone else's routine. The stall owner, sensing your unease, grins. It's not a kind grin. More of an, I know what you're about to try kind of grin. He slaps the cloth against the counter, and then his eyes lock on yours. You have coins? He asks bluntly. You pause. Coins. Don't tell me you have nothing to trade, stranger. His voice is rough, but the humor in it is real. You've got something worth a little, yes. A glance down at your tunic and sandals confirms that no, you definitely don't have any spare gold hidden in there. No great trinkets. No secret stash of exotic goods that will make the markets bow to you. But something nags at you. He's not just offering you copper plates. He's offering you the game, the test. So you do what any good, slightly confused but determined traveler would do. You barter. You don't even know how. You just start talking, gesturing wildly. You mention your non-existent merchant skills and how valuable your presence is in the world of intellectuals and philosophers. You emphasize your survival in the wilderness, your minor understanding of the local language, and your apparent ability to avoid being eaten by crocodiles. You play the poor traveler who has nothing but stories card and throw in a bit of I'll owe you one for flair. To your surprise, the stall owner bursts out laughing. And for a moment, you think he's about to chase you off with a broomstick. Instead, he waves his hand dismissively. Fine, fine, you're amusing. Have one of my plates. You stare at him. Really? Really, he says. You'll pay later. Now, you're really confused. Wait, what? You ask. He shrugs, then grabs a plate and hands it to you. It's cool, heavy in your hand, and decorated with an intricate pattern of geometric shapes, faintly reminiscent of the stars on the mosque walls. You can feel the craftsmanship. This isn't some cheaply made trinket. This is a plate that has value. True, unspoken value. I'll collect later, the man says, giving you a wink. I trust you. You're left standing there, holding the plate like it's some kind of sacred artifact. You glance at Beard Man, who simply nods and says, You're learning. Learning what? Exactly? You're not sure, but something has shifted in the atmosphere. The market isn't just a place of commerce anymore. It's a game of trust, of rhythm, and of rules that are invisible until you've played enough to understand them. You may not have any actual wealth to offer, but you've just learned that in medieval Egypt, wealth doesn't always mean gold. It can be stories, charm, even the way you carry yourself in the flow of life. The next stall is a bit more traditional. Pots and pans, colorful scarves, baskets. A woman with a gentle smile waves you over. Beard Man, of course, is already haggling with her for spices. You're still holding the plate, unsure what to do with it. Maybe you'll keep it as a souvenir, something to remind you of this wild, dizzying moment in time when you felt like you might actually belong here. But as you shift the plate in your hand, you see something curious. The woman at the stall watches you with a knowing look, like she's waiting for something. She then motions for you to place the plate on the counter. A few minutes of quiet negotiation pass, your mind still muddled from your earlier success. And then, surprisingly, you realize something. You're being given the plate back. Take this, the woman says. No charge. Your wealth, my friend, is your honesty. You have none of the gold we trade, but you understand the value of something far more important. You blink. The meaning of this? Still unclear. But you're beginning to understand that here, in medieval Cairo, you could be destitute and still have riches. You could have nothing in your pocket and everything in your heart. All that mattered was whether you could weave yourself into the fabric of this city, or get run over by its wheels in the process. As you walk away with your copper plate, you can't help but feel that you've just taken your first step into a world that doesn't care about how much you have, but how well you play the game. Now, if only you could figure out how to play it without embarrassing yourself in front of everybody. By now, you've learned an important lesson about life in medieval Cairo. It's less about what you own and more about how you present yourself. This is an age where status is as fluid as the Nile itself, sometimes up, sometimes down, but always tied to the unseen networks that bind the city together. Wealth isn't just coins. It's your relationships, your reputation, and even your ability to make everyone believe you belong, even if you're still trying to figure out how to ask for directions without looking like a complete tourist. You spend the next few hours wandering through the bustling market, now holding your copper plate like a badge of honor. You get more than a few curious glances from locals, some of them admiring your skill at bargaining, others simply trying to figure out what you're about. It feels like you've joined a secret club, but you're still not entirely sure of the handshake. Despite the heat, despite the bustling crowds and the occasional stare, you start to appreciate the rhythm of Cairo. It's a city that moves like a living, breathing organism, always in motion, always adjusting, always watching. You're no longer an outsider, but a participant. That copper plate? It's your entry token. But the real challenge lies ahead. You find yourself being pulled in a direction that feels less like wandering and more like being led. Without even realizing it, you've strayed into a quieter part of the market, where the noise is muffled, and the streets have a different texture. Less busy, more intimate. The stone here is darker, the shadows deeper. The air smells of something more mysterious. Myrrh, frankincense, perhaps a bit of mint. You almost feel like you've stumbled into another era, a secret alley where the city's pulse slows, and you're the only one walking through it. Here, the vendors aren't shouting. They are whispering. The goods on display are strange, exotic. Rare stones that glitter in the dim light. Small jars of oils you can't identify, but their labels promise something beyond the physical realm. You hear phrases like cure for the soul and elixir for the heart floating through the air, each word dripping with the weight of ancient knowledge, things you're not sure you're supposed to know. And then you see her. A woman, seated at the back of a stall, surrounded by dusty scrolls and strange instruments you can't immediately recognize. She's not young, not old, but her presence commands attention. Her robes are dark, her eyes sharp and knowing, the kind of eyes that seem to have already seen your entire life and know how it ends. "Ah, the traveler," she says, her voice smooth and calming, like the desert wind on a cool evening. "I was wondering when you'd arrive." You freeze. The plate in your hand suddenly feels heavier, like a strange burden. "How did you know I was coming?" you ask, your voice catching just slightly. She smiles, a knowing smile that tells you she's no stranger to the mysteries of the world. "I know the heart of travelers, even ones who come from far-off lands. I can read the signs, the way you move, the way you carry yourself. You're searching for something." It's not a question. It's a statement. And it feels true. You are searching for something. You're not sure exactly what it is yet. Perhaps understanding. Perhaps a way to survive in a world that feels both ancient and alive in ways you never imagined. You take a step closer to the stall, your feet moving of their own accord. The strange instruments catch your eye. There are small bowls made of silver, a delicate arrangement of bones, and a bundle of dried herbs that smell like they could have come from the very first garden. "What is all this?" you ask, your curiosity piqued. "Magic," she replies simply. Or, more accurately, the power of the mind, body, and soul in harmony. But magic is just a word. What I offer is knowledge. Knowledge. That word strikes a chord with you. It's exactly what you've been after, isn't it? A way to navigate this foreign world. A way to make sense of the people, the culture, the strange rules that seem to govern everything. The woman eyes you, then slowly picks up one of the small bowls. It's intricately carved, and as she holds it in her hands, the shadows seem to dance and shift. "This," she says softly, "is a tool for divination. It allows you to see past what is in front of you, into the heart of the matter. It can reveal hidden truths, if you know how to ask the right questions." You're not sure why, but you're suddenly intrigued. This isn't a typical market stall. This isn't some random sales pitch. There's something deeper here, something you can't quite grasp but feel in your bones. "What do you see?" she asks, suddenly looking directly at you. The weight of her gaze is like being measured for something, some unseen future. You open your mouth to say something, but nothing comes out. You swallow hard. You think about asking her what she can really do, how much truth there is in all of this. But you don't. Instead, you blurt the first thing that comes to your mind. Can you teach me to survive here? Her lips curl into a smile, but it's not the kind of smile you expected. It's not one of sympathy or kindness. It's the smile of someone who has seen far more than they ever wanted to. Survival, she repeats. Isn't that what you've been asking all along? You nod slowly. You've been asking for a way to survive, not just in Cairo but in this entire world. This world that's ancient, alive, and so very different from the one you know. I will teach you, she says finally. But you will need to listen carefully. The world here is not kind to those who don't understand its rules. And with that, you realize, survival isn't just about finding food, shelter, and staying out of trouble. It's about understanding the very fabric of life itself. Cairo doesn't just offer survival, it offers transformation. If you can play by its rules, it might just teach you something you never knew you needed. You're ready. Or, at least, you think you are. But now, the real test begins. The woman's stall becomes a strange sort of sanctuary for you in the following days. You visit her often, trying to decode the mysteries she offers, though she never hands you any answers easily. Instead, she fills your head with riddles and symbols, teaching you to read the subtle signs the world offers. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with pieces that keep shifting. The first lesson is simple but powerful. The world, she tells you, is a web of connections. Everything is linked, from the birds that soar above the city to the dust beneath your sandals. Every person you meet, every moment you experience, is part of a greater pattern, even if you can't see it clearly yet. Cairo doesn't tell you its secrets. She says one evening, as the golden light of dusk falls over the market. It shows them, but you have to know where to look. You begin to understand what she means. The city isn't just a place. It's a living entity with a soul of its own. It feels different here, like there's an energy pulsing through everything. The ancient stones, the chatter of the crowds, the smells that mingle in the air. There's a rhythm, a beat to it all. You have to catch it, just like you'd catch the right wave if you wanted to surf the ocean. The second lesson is less mystical and more practical, but no less vital. She teaches you how to read people. Something that becomes clear is essential if you're to survive in a city like Cairo. The subtle glances, the way someone adjusts their stance when you approach, the manner in which they speak, each detail gives away something important. In a world where survival is as much about perception as it is about action, you learn to listen to what's not being said. One evening, you ask her how she knows so much. You've never seen her leave her stall, and she always seems to know exactly what's going on in the city, like she's always a step ahead of everyone else. You don't need to leave to know everything, she replies cryptically. The world speaks to you if you're listening. The key is in knowing what questions to ask. Once you've learned that, everything else falls into place. It's a subtle lesson, but it sticks with you. You find yourself paying more attention to the rhythm of things, the pulse of Cairo, the way the people around you move. You start noticing the small things, the quiet conversations you overhear as you walk through the markets, the way people exchange knowing glances, the tilt of a merchant's head as he makes his sale. All of it is information. And all of it, it seems, is essential to survival. But even as you start to feel like you might be getting a grip on things, there's still one big, glaring problem. You're not actually from here. You don't belong in this world, no matter how much you try to blend in. You're still an outsider, a foreigner in a strange and ancient land. And the city, with all its charm and warmth, still doesn't seem to care whether or not you succeed. One day, as you walk through the bustling streets on your way to the woman's stall, you find yourself caught in the midst of something you've seen only from a distance, a confrontation. It happens quickly. A merchant, his face flushed with anger, is arguing with a young man. The words are sharp and fast, and the crowd around them begins to murmur, sensing trouble. You try to slip past, but you're too close to ignore. You cheated me, the merchant shouts, his hands raised, his voice shaking with fury. I know your type, always trying to take advantage of me. The young man, visibly trembling, tries to explain himself. But the merchant isn't listening. It's clear from the look in his eyes that he's more concerned with maintaining his dignity than hearing the truth. The crowd begins to press in closer. People exchange glances, some muttering under their breath, some standing still, waiting for something to happen. The tension in the air is palpable, like a rope pulled too tight. You instinctively back away, not wanting to get caught in the middle of whatever's about to unfold. But then, something strange happens. The woman from the stall appears, stepping through the crowd like a shadow. Her presence alone silences the murmurs. The crowd parts for her without question, like they all recognize her as someone who holds power here. It's not just the way she moves, it's the way the crowd reacts to her. There's a respect, a reverence, that you hadn't noticed before. She walks directly toward the merchant, who stands frozen for a moment. Then, without a word, she places a hand on his shoulder. In an instant, the air shifts. The merchant goes silent. His anger fades into something softer, confusion, perhaps. He looks at her as though he's seeing her for the first time. The young man, his face pale and sweat-slick, breathes out a sigh of relief. The woman speaks one word, low, barely audible to anyone but the merchant. And just like that, the confrontation is over. The merchant's shoulders sag, and he nods once, retreating into the stall as though nothing had happened. The crowd, too, begins to disperse, though they throw curious glances at the woman as she calmly walks away. You stand there, dumbfounded. Did you see that? You mutter to no one in particular. One of the bystanders, a man with a long tunic and a white turban, leans toward you. Ah, yes. That's how it's done here. The woman has power, a kind of authority. People listen to her, not because of fear, but because she understands the heart of Cairo. You're still trying to process what just happened. The way she diffused the situation with a single word, a touch, an almost imperceptible shift in the air. It wasn't magic, not in the way you thought. It was something else, something you weren't quite sure you could name. And yet, there's a nagging thought in the back of your mind. Maybe you're starting to understand the key to surviving in this strange place after all. It's not just about knowing the rules. It's about knowing how to bend them, how to read the room, how to navigate the currents of power, influence, and respect that flow beneath the surface of everything. You've got a lot left to learn. But for the first time, you feel like you're starting to get the hang of it. As days pass, you begin to feel the weight of Cairo pressing down on you less and less. The city no longer feels as foreign. The once overwhelming noise now a rhythmic hum in the background. You know where to find the best spices, how to navigate the narrow alleyways, and, most importantly, how to blend into the flow of people without standing out too much. The woman, who you've come to think of as your mentor, continues to offer her cryptic advice. She speaks less now, though. When she does, her words are heavy with meaning, like stones tossed into the still waters of your understanding, causing ripples that stretch outward. One evening, she tells you, the true test of surviving here is not in what you own, but in what you can leave behind. You don't quite understand what she means at first. How can you leave behind anything when you barely have anything to begin with? You've been living on scraps, trading your copper plate here, offering a handful of grains there, trying to make do with what you've picked up along the way. But the more you think about it, the more you realize, she's not talking about physical things. She's talking about something deeper. She's talking about letting go of your old self, of the identity you brought with you. You've arrived in Cairo as a stranger, as an outsider, and the only way you'll ever truly survive here is if you learn to shed that old skin, that sense of being someone from somewhere else. And that's when it hits you. You've been holding on too tightly to the notion of who you were before you arrived. The traveler. The outsider. The one who doesn't belong. In the process, you've been trying to force yourself into a mold that doesn't fit. But maybe you're not meant to fit the mold. Maybe, just maybe, the trick is to break it. You look around at the people who walk past you in the streets. Some are merchants, others travelers like you, and some, perhaps the most interesting, are those who don't seem to have any particular role at all. They're just there, moving through the city, interacting with it, not trying to dominate or control it, but simply being a part of it. You start to think about the woman again, about her strange power, the way she commands respect without saying much. She doesn't try to impose herself on the city. Instead, she understands it, knows it, and flows with it, like a current in the Nile, bending around rocks but never losing its way. You find yourself wondering if that's the secret to surviving here. Not to fight the current, not to try and force your own path, but to find a way to move with it. You begin to practice what you've learned, trying to let go of your old ways of thinking. You approach the market with a new attitude, less assertive, less determined to get something. Instead, you start to take the time to watch people, to understand their rhythms, to pay attention to the little cues they give away without even realizing it. The more you listen, the more you notice. The young woman at the spice stall, who always tilts her head to the side when she's thinking. The way the baker smiles when someone compliments his bread. The tiny flick of the merchant's wrist as he hands over a piece of copper. They're all small things, but each of them speaks volumes about the person involved. You start to see the subtle dance of Cairo, not just in the grand gestures but in the small, quiet moments that go unnoticed by most. And it's not just the people. It's the city itself, the stones, the buildings, the streets. There's a rhythm to it, a pulse that's almost imperceptible unless you're looking for it. You can feel it in the way the sun casts long shadows across the market in the afternoon, in the way the air shifts before the call to prayer echoes across the city, in the way the wind moves through the alleyways. Everything in Cairo is part of a greater cycle, a pattern that repeats itself over and over again, just as the seasons do. You start to realize that, just like the woman, you have to understand the rhythm of the city. You can't fight it. You can't force your way through it. But if you learn to move with it, if you learn to flow with the current instead of resisting it, you might just make it here. One day, as you're walking through the market, you notice something strange. The merchant you've been buying spices from for weeks now gives you a small nod as you approach, a brief, respectful gesture that seems to say, "I know you." It's nothing major, but it's enough to make you stop and think. For the first time since you arrived in Cairo, you feel like you've been accepted, if only in the smallest way. And then, just as you start to savor the satisfaction of this small victory, you notice something else. The woman from the stall isn't there today. You look around, but there's no sign of her. You walk past her usual spot several times, but she's nowhere to be found. A twinge of unease settles in your stomach. It's strange, this feeling of being so deeply connected to a place, to a person, only to have it suddenly vanish. The market feels a little emptier without her presence, even though you know that life in Cairo never stops moving. People continue to rush past, goods continue to be traded, and the city's heartbeat never skips a beat. But somehow, it feels like something essential is missing. You stand there for a while, staring at the empty stall, trying to figure out what to do. And then, it dawns on you, this is how it always works. The city, with its strange, ancient ways, has given you the knowledge it's willing to share. But now, it's up to you to survive, to stand on your own, to let go of the crutches you've been relying on. The woman might be gone, but she's left you with something far more important. The ability to navigate the currents of this city, to read the signs, to understand the unspoken language of Cairo. And as you stand there, looking at her empty stall, you realize that, in some strange way, you've already become part of this city, without even knowing it. The following days are a blur of discovery and quiet reflection. Without the woman's guidance, you're forced to rely more heavily on your instincts. But the truth is, you're starting to feel Cairo now. There's a language to this city that you've learned to speak, even if you don't fully understand it. It's like learning to read the stars before you can name the constellations. Your senses are attuned, but your mind is still catching up. At first, you think the woman's absence is just a temporary thing. After all, Cairo is a city where people come and go, where merchants and travelers flit in and out of view like shadows in the heat. But as the days stretch on, you begin to wonder if she's truly gone, or if perhaps she's simply stepped into a part of the city you haven't yet discovered. You return to her stall every day, hoping for some sign, some clue that will lead you back to her. The space where she once sat is now occupied by a different vendor, one who sells small amulets and trinkets, but the energy is different. The stall feels emptier, as though it no longer holds the same magnetic pull it once had. Yet, even without her presence, you feel the pull of the city continue to guide you. The lessons she imparted are starting to take root in your daily life. You've learned to trust your gut, to follow the flow of the people, to recognize when the air shifts, when a conversation turns and a new possibility presents itself. But there are still moments when you feel the unfamiliar weight of being an outsider. Moments when you realize that, despite all you've learned, you still don't belong here entirely. There's something unspoken about Cairo, a kind of knowledge that only those who've lived here for lifetimes truly understand. One afternoon, as you wander through the quieter, less commercial part of the market, you encounter a man who seems different from the others. He's older than most of the traders and has the weathered look of someone who's spent years traveling the deserts and cities of Egypt. His eyes are sharp, his face lined with the marks of 1,000 stories, and his hands are calloused from a lifetime of work. He stands at the entrance of a small, inconspicuous stall filled with old scrolls and ancient books, their leather covers cracked and worn. It's not the kind of stall that draws a lot of attention, but something about it catches your eye. Maybe it's the way the man seems to look through you rather than at you. Or maybe it's the faint aura of mystery that clings to him, like dust to an old artifact. "Ah, you're looking for knowledge, I see," he says, his voice gravelly but not unkind. "Come closer, traveler. I have what you seek." You hesitate, unsure whether to approach. Something about his words, the way he seems to know what's in your heart, makes you feel both wary and intrigued. You step closer, the old wooden floorboards creaking under your feet. "Is it true that you have ancient texts?" you ask, trying to sound confident, but a part of you wonders if you're about to walk into something you might not be able to handle. The man nods slowly, his weathered face creasing into a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. "I have scrolls that speak of the forgotten knowledge of Egypt. But they are not for everyone. Only those who truly seek will find their way to them." His words linger in the air, as though they carry a weight that only you can feel. For a moment, you stand there, contemplating whether to press further. There's a magnetic pull toward his stall, but something holds you back. It's as though this is yet another test, another chance to prove you belong here, or perhaps to fall victim to the city's countless dangers. "What do you mean?" you ask, your voice quieter now. He studies you for a long moment, his eyes piercing as if weighing your very soul. "There is knowledge," he begins slowly, "that can unlock the deepest mysteries of this world. But be warned, traveler, there is also knowledge that can break you. Many come seeking power, seeking answers, but they are not prepared for what they find." You feel a chill run down your spine. It's not the heat of Cairo, which you've grown accustomed to, but something else, something primal, a sense of danger, as though the man knows something you don't. "Do you seek power, traveler?" he asks, his voice dropping low, almost a whisper now. "Or do you seek the truth?" You swallow hard, your throat suddenly dry. It's a question that cuts deeper than you expect. The truth? Power? What is it that you really seek here in Cairo? You thought you came to survive, to make sense of this world. But now, you wonder if there's more at play. Could you really withstand the weight of knowledge so vast, so ancient, that it might change everything you thought you knew? Before you can answer, the man smiles, a knowing smile, one that seems to suggest he already knows what's in your heart. "I thought so," he says softly. "The truth is the hardest thing to carry. But remember this, traveler. It is not the truth that will break you. It is the search for it that does." With that, he turns, disappearing behind a stack of scrolls and books. The stall suddenly feels emptier, colder. You stand there for a moment, staring at the place where he just stood, the question hanging in the air like a heavy weight. What do you really want, traveler? The truth? Or something more? You leave the stall in a daze, the weight of his words lingering in your mind like a shadow that refuses to let go. You can't shake the feeling that you've just encountered someone, who understands far more about this world than you ever will. But you also can't ignore the sense of curiosity gnawing at you, the desire to find out just how deep this rabbit hole goes. Is the truth really what you want? Or is there something else that draws you deeper into the labyrinth of Cairo? You don't have the answers yet, but as you walk away, the question echoes in your mind, a whisper that will stay with you, guiding you through the dark corners of this ancient city. The days that follow are filled with a strange, restless energy. It's as though the encounter with the mysterious man has unsettled something deep within you, leaving you feeling more uncertain than before. The city feels different now, as if it's watching you, waiting for you to make your next move. Cairo is a city of shadows and light, of whispers and silences, and you can't help but wonder how much of it is real and how much is illusion. The man's words keep repeating in your mind. It is not the truth that will break you. It is the search for it that does. It's a paradox, one that seems simple at first but reveals layers upon layers of meaning the more you turn it over in your mind. What does it mean to search for something when you don't even know what you're looking for? As you walk through the narrow streets, you find yourself reflecting on your time here, on the lessons you've learned from the woman at the stall and the way the city has begun to feel like home, despite all its dangers. You've picked up the rhythm of Cairo, but there's still something elusive about it. It's as though you're constantly on the verge of understanding, but every time you think you've grasped it, the city slips through your fingers like sand. In the evenings, you've started to visit the bustling cafe near the river. It's a place where people from all walks of life gather. Merchants, travelers, even local scholars, and you've found that you can eavesdrop on conversations without drawing too much attention. It's in these moments that you begin to piece together more about the city's true heart. The hidden conversations, the subtle shifts in power, the intricate dance of politics and culture that hums beneath the surface of everyday life. One night, as you sip on a cup of date juice and listen to the low murmur of voices around you, a familiar face catches your eye. It's the young man who you've seen at the spice stall several times, the one who always seems to be in a hurry, his face drawn with worry. Tonight, though, he's sitting alone at a corner table, staring out over the river, his eyes distant. Something in his posture strikes you. There's a weight to him, a kind of sadness that's not immediately obvious but that's unmistakable when you look closely. His shoulders are hunched, as though he's carrying a burden far heavier than what his slender frame can manage. Curiosity tugs at you. You've seen him around often, but you've never spoken. The fact that he's sitting here alone, in the quiet of the night, makes you wonder if he's got something more to hide, something you've missed until now. You rise from your seat and make your way over to him, the air heavy with the scent of the river and the distant sound of the market winding down for the evening. When you reach his table, you hesitate for a moment before speaking. "Is everything all right?" you ask, your voice soft, hesitant. The young man looks up, startled, as if he didn't expect anyone to approach him. For a moment, his eyes meet yours, but there's a guarded look in them, like he's not sure whether he should trust you. He sighs deeply, running a hand through his hair. "It's complicated," he mutters, looking back out at the river. "You wouldn't understand." You don't press him, but you don't leave either. Instead, you sit down across from him, ordering a drink to match the mood. You've learned that sometimes, silence is the best way to speak. After a long, uncomfortable pause, he finally speaks again. "I've been living in Cairo for years, but I still don't belong here," he says, his voice low and tight with frustration. "I thought I could find my place, find some purpose. But it feels like I'm always on the outside, looking in." You listen, recognizing the familiar ache in his words. It's the same feeling you've had since you first arrived. This sense of being an outsider, someone who doesn't quite fit in, no matter how much you try. But there's something different about the way he says it. It's not just about survival. It's about something deeper, something more personal. "There's always a price for knowledge," he continues, his eyes flickering briefly to the dark sky above. "And sometimes, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. I thought I had it figured out. I thought I understood Cairo, how everything worked. But now I don't even know where to start." You nod slowly, understanding more than you let on. The search for meaning, the quest for knowledge, those things are dangerous, more so than you ever imagined. They change you, make you see the world in ways you might not be prepared for. "Do you ever wish you hadn't come here?" you ask quietly, almost afraid of the answer. He looks at you, his eyes tired but filled with a kind of clarity that only comes from enduring hardship. Every day, he admits. But I can't leave. Not now. Cairo, it has a way of getting under your skin. Once you're here, you're stuck. You can't just walk away. You sit in silence for a while, the weight of his words sinking in. Cairo is a place that doesn't let go easily. It pulls you in, changes you, and then holds you in its grip. It's as if the city itself is alive, breathing, always shifting, always growing, always consuming. It's a terrifying thought, but also a strangely comforting one. You're not alone in your feelings of displacement. Even those who have lived here for years still struggle to find their place, to make sense of the city's endless complexity. Maybe that's the lesson, you say after a long moment, your voice barely above a whisper. Maybe it's not about finding your place. Maybe it's about accepting that you don't have one, not in the way you thought. The young man looks at you, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Maybe you're right. You both sit there for a long time, lost in the quiet of the evening, watching the river reflect the glow of the lanterns from across the way. In that moment, it feels as though the world around you has slowed, as if time itself is taking a breath. And for the first time since you arrived in Cairo, you feel like you might just have a tiny piece of understanding. It's not much, but it's enough to make you realize that maybe, just maybe, you're starting to belong here. Not as someone who fits perfectly into the city's rhythm, but as someone who has learned to move with it, even when it seems impossible. The next morning, the air is thick with the scent of incense and the distant hum of the city coming to life. Cairo doesn't sleep. It's always shifting, always alive, and you're learning that no matter how much you try to fit into it, the city will always be more than you can grasp. But something about the conversation with the young man the night before lingers in your mind. His words, though heavy with frustration, hold a truth you can't ignore. Perhaps it's not about fitting in at all, but about accepting the ebb and flow of this place, this strange, ancient river of life that keeps moving, no matter who tries to hold on. You've been walking the streets of Cairo for days now, but today feels different. As you navigate the winding alleys and crowded markets, you notice things you hadn't before. The ancient stone walls of buildings, their surfaces worn smooth by centuries of hands passing over them. The faded frescoes on the corners of forgotten shops, their colors still vivid in the morning light, like ghosts of a past life. The heat of the sun, tempered by a cool breeze that carries the faintest hint of salt from the river. But it's not just the physical things that stand out today. You're more attuned to the rhythm of the people now. You can hear the language in the way they speak, in the small pauses they take when they're deciding what to say, in the way they look at each other. Sometimes with open friendliness, other times with the kind of wary caution that only comes from years of surviving in a city that's as unpredictable as Cairo. As you make your way to the central square, you hear a familiar voice calling your name. You turn to see a merchant you've come to know over the past few weeks. He's a tall man, his skin the color of rich earth, his eyes sharp and alert as he waves you over with a grin. "Ah, my friend, you've returned," he exclaims, clapping you on the back with the kind of warmth that makes you feel like you've known him for years instead of just a few days. "I have something special for you today." You follow him to his stall, which is filled with the usual assortment of goods, jewelry, cloth, spices, but today there's a new addition. A set of beautifully carved wooden figurines, each one depicting a different god or goddess from the ancient Egyptian pantheon. The craftsmanship is exquisite, and you can tell they've been made with great care. "These are for the serious collector," the merchant says with a wink. "But I'll give you a good price, my friend. You're one of the few who understands the value of true art." You nod, pretending to consider his offer, but your mind is elsewhere. The figurines are beautiful, yes, but there's something about them that feels off. It's not the craftsmanship. It's the way they sit on the table, almost like they're waiting for something. A subtle tension in the air that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. "What do you know about these?" you ask, your voice casual but probing. The merchant hesitates for just a moment before answering. "They are replicas, of course, but replicas of very old things. Things that were made for a purpose," he says, lowering his voice. "They are not just art. Some believe they carry a kind of power." A connection to the gods, if you will. But it's not a power that everyone can control. You raise an eyebrow, intrigued despite yourself. You've heard whispers of such things in the market before, about items and artifacts imbued with ancient energies. But this is the first time someone's mentioned it directly to you. And what do you think? You ask, your voice lowering too. Do you believe in that kind of power? He shrugs, his grin slipping slightly, replaced by a more contemplative expression. I don't know. But there are people who come here, who want things like these. They believe they can change their fate, bend the will of the gods, or even talk to them. I don't judge, my friend. People believe what they need to believe. His answer unsettles you more than you expected. The idea of power, the idea of using ancient forces to shape your destiny, it's something that has always haunted the periphery of your thoughts since arriving in Cairo. But now it feels closer, more tangible, like something you can reach out and touch. You take a step back from the stall, the weight of the conversation sitting heavily on your chest. There's a certain unease in the air now, like a storm on the horizon, something you can sense but can't quite see. The more you think about the figurines, the more you wonder about the truth behind them. Are they just art? Or do they carry something more, something dangerous, perhaps? As you walk away from the merchant's stall, the bustling noise of the market begins to fade into the background, and you can't help but feel like you're on the verge of something. The city seems to be closing in on you, its rhythms pushing you forward, pulling you deeper into its mysteries. And the more you discover, the more you realize just how much you don't know. The figurines, the gods, they've been here for millennia. Their presence lingers in the shadows of the city, their whispers carried on the wind. What do they want from you? What is Cairo really offering, and at what cost? You can't stop thinking about it. The answers are out there, buried in the heart of the city, waiting for you to uncover them. But the deeper you go, the more you realize the city's not just teaching you about survival. It's teaching you something darker, something more primal. It's showing you the power of belief, the power of the unseen forces that shape everything around you. It's also showing you how easily one can become lost in it all. By the time the sun begins to set, the market has begun to quiet. You head back to your small corner of the city, the weight of the figurines and their hidden power pressing against your mind. The streets feel longer tonight, the shadows deeper, the air heavier. As you reach your door, you turn to glance back at the market one last time, and for a brief moment, you think you see the woman from the stall, the one who showed you how to listen to the city. She's standing at the edge of the crowd, watching you, her face unreadable. But when you blink, she's gone. You shake your head, trying to clear the unsettling thought from your mind. Cairo is a city of ghosts, of things unseen, of lessons learned too late. And you realize, with a chill in your bones, that no matter how hard you try, you will never truly leave this place. Cairo has you now, body and soul. The days blend into each other like ripples on the Nile, and with every passing moment, Cairo draws you deeper into its tangled web. You've started to accept that maybe you'll never fully understand this city. Not its secrets, not its rhythms, not even its people. There's a comfort in that, strange as it may sound. The pressure to fit in slowly fades, replaced by a resignation, an acknowledgement that here, in this ancient, unforgiving place, you will always be an outsider. But that's okay. There's freedom in knowing your place is not to have one. Still, the city doesn't let you off that easily. You've learned by now that when Cairo notices you, it doesn't forget you. It's a quiet kind of attention, the kind that creeps up behind you when you least expect it, like the heat of the day that wraps around your body long after the sun has set. It's in the looks you get from people, half curious, half suspicious. It's in the way the city seems to shift ever so slightly when you move through it, as though it's watching, gauging your every step. You find yourself back in the market that afternoon, the same place where you've spent so many days now, but today the air feels different. There's a tension that lingers, something unspoken that rides the currents of the crowd. You've been here long enough to know that when the mood shifts in Cairo, it shifts quickly, and you've learned the hard way that it's best to stay alert. As you make your way through the stalls, something catches your eye. A man, standing in the shadows near a dimly lit corner of the market. He's tall, his back straight, his face obscured by the folds of a worn cloak. You can't make out his features, but there's something about him that draws you in, a quiet pull that you can't ignore. He's looking directly at you now, his gaze sharp, assessing. For a moment, you think about turning away, about pretending you didn't see him, but something inside you, something stubborn, something restless, compels you to move closer. When you reach the edge of his space, the man steps forward, and his cloak shifts slightly, revealing a leather pouch hanging from his belt. The pouch glints in the fading light, its contents clearly valuable. There's something strangely familiar about it, as if you've seen it before, but you can't quite place where. You look lost, the man says, his voice low, smooth, and full of something like quiet amusement. But that's only natural. Few ever truly understand this city. You freeze, unsure of whether to respond. There's a cool, almost mocking tone to his words, but it's not entirely unkind. The air around him feels heavy, as if the space between you and him has suddenly become thicker. I'm not lost, you finally say, trying to sound confident. I'm just here. He chuckles softly, and it's not a sound you want to hear again. There's something unsettling in it, a hint of knowledge in the way he speaks. It's as if he knows things about you, things you haven't yet figured out yourself. You're here, yes, he says, taking a step closer. But that's the thing about Cairo. Everyone who arrives here arrives for a reason, even if they don't know it yet. A chill runs down your spine, though you try to keep your expression neutral. The way he speaks, it's as if he's seen this story before, as though he knows the twists and turns of your journey better than you do. What do you want? You ask, your voice steady but betraying a hint of wariness. The man's eyes glint, and he tilts his head slightly, as if considering your question carefully. I'm not the one who wants something, he says softly. You, on the other hand, you've been searching for something since you stepped foot in this city, haven't you? The words hit you like a hammer to the chest. You hadn't realized how true they were until he said them aloud. Of course, you've been searching. It's been in your bones from the moment you arrived, searching for meaning, for purpose, for something that could explain this city, this feeling of displacement that never quite goes away. But you didn't think anyone else could see it. And certainly not this man, this stranger in the shadows. I'm not sure what you're talking about, you lie, but the man doesn't seem fooled. He merely smiles, a thin, enigmatic grin that makes your stomach churn. It's not about finding what you're looking for, he says, but about what happens when you realize it's been staring you in the face all along. You take a step back, suddenly unsure of what to do next. The tension in the air grows thick, almost suffocating. The crowd around you seems to move slower, as if they too are sensing the strange energy hanging between you and this man. And then, as if by some silent signal, the man steps back into the shadows, disappearing as quickly as he appeared, leaving you standing there, your heart racing, your mind spinning with questions. What did he mean? What did he see in you that you couldn't see yourself? You stand there for a long moment, processing what just happened, but the answer, whatever it is, remains elusive. The market carries on around you, but the feeling of unease lingers. You start walking, not knowing exactly where you're headed, but feeling the pull of something just out of reach, just out of sight. The rest of the day passes in a blur, the encounter replaying in your mind over and over again. You can't shake the feeling that you've just crossed a threshold, that something important has just happened. You've felt this before, whenever Cairo shifts, whenever the city decides to take notice of you. It's a feeling that both excites and terrifies you, like standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure whether the wind will carry you or if you'll fall. That evening, you return to the quiet corner of the city where you've been staying. But the shadows seem deeper tonight. The air feels heavier. And once again, you wonder what this place is trying to teach you, and if you're strong enough to learn. The next morning, a strange stillness hangs in the air, as though Cairo is holding its breath. You've spent the better part of the last few weeks growing accustomed to the frenetic energy of the city, to the constant hum of voices, the clattering of carts, and the seemingly endless sea of people moving about their business. But today, it's different. The streets are quieter, the sounds of the market less pronounced. Even the usual calls of the vendors, those familiar cries of fresh figs, fragrant spices, seem distant, as though muffled by some unseen force. You can't quite shake the feeling that something has changed. Whether it's because of the encounter with the cloaked man the day before, or the lingering sensation that the city itself is watching you, you can't tell. It's as though everything in Cairo is on the verge of revealing something just beyond your reach, teasing you with its proximity. You decide to take a walk through the city, hoping to shake off the strange feeling that's settled in your chest. As you move through the streets, you pass familiar faces. Merchant stallholders you've come to recognize, children playing in the dusty alleys, women in colorful dresses chatting together as they carry water jugs. But today, their faces seem less vivid, less real, like actors in a play rather than people living out their lives. Your thoughts drift back to the cloaked man. You can't stop wondering about his words. You've been searching for something since you stepped foot in this city. The more you think about it, the more it makes sense. You've been searching for understanding, for something to anchor you in this unfamiliar world. But what exactly are you looking for? You don't have the answer, and the more you try to pin it down, the more elusive it becomes. As you walk, you find yourself near the edge of the city, where the buildings give way to open land. The sun is high in the sky, casting long, sharp shadows across the sand, and the temperature is rising, though it's still bearable. You've never ventured this far before. Most people stay within the bustling heart of Cairo, where the action is. But today, you feel an inexplicable pull toward the outskirts, as if something is calling you. The landscape changes here. The air is quieter, almost oppressive in its silence. The city feels far behind you, as if you've crossed some invisible boundary. You see a figure in the distance, standing near the edge of a small, ancient-looking stone structure, its walls cracked and weathered with age. The figure is tall, cloaked in robes, but unlike the man in the market, this one seems peaceful, almost serene. There's something otherworldly about them, something that sets your senses on edge. As you draw closer, the figure turns, and for the first time since you've arrived in Cairo, you feel the unmistakable pull of something that might be destiny. The figure's face is hidden beneath a hood, but the air around them seems to shimmer with an energy you can't explain. The person raises a hand, and for a brief moment, your heart skips a beat. You have no idea why, but something about this gesture feels like an invitation, a sign that the answers you've been searching for are within your reach. You stop in your tracks, unsure of what to do next. There's a flicker of hesitation, your instincts telling you to turn and leave, to walk away from whatever this is. But then you remember the words of the cloaked man in the market. You've been searching for something. This is it, isn't it? This is the moment when everything converges, when the hidden path becomes clear. Taking a deep breath, you step forward. The figure doesn't move, but there's a warmth in the air now, as if the sun itself has shifted its focus, casting a golden hue over everything around you. You're almost close enough to touch the figure, but there's still an unspoken distance between you. A tension in the space that makes your palms sweat and your heartbeat quicken. And then, in a voice that's soft yet commanding, the figure speaks. You have come far, they say. The words feel like a statement, not a question. But you are not yet ready. The chill that runs through your veins is immediate. Not ready? What does that even mean? You've come this far, haven't you? You've learned the ways of the city, survived its dangers, and now you stand before someone who seems to know exactly why you've come, but the door is still closed. I don't understand, you reply, your voice almost a whisper, unsure of what this figure wants from you. The figure raises their hand once more, and this time, the air around you shifts. It's as though the world itself is moving, rearranging itself in response to their will. The ground beneath your feet seems to hum with energy, the stone of the ancient structure vibrating ever so slightly, like it's alive. You are not yet ready, the figure repeats, their voice carrying a weight that seems to press on your chest. But in time, you will be. The city will teach you. It always does. Before you can respond, the figure turns away, stepping into the shadows of the stone structure. The world around you shifts back to its normal state, the hum of the city's life returning like a distant echo in your ears. For a moment, you stand there, stunned, unable to comprehend what just happened. You've been given a glimpse, haven't you? A glimpse of something beyond the city, beyond the layers of history and mystery. But the path is still hidden, still obscured. And you wonder, was it ever meant for you to find? As you walk back toward the city, the weight of what just happened presses heavily on you. The figure, the words, the invitation. You don't know what to make of it. You don't know if it's a test, a challenge, or a warning. But one thing is clear, Cairo is not finished with you. Not by a long shot. And the search you've been on? It's far from over. The following days pass in a blur, though nothing quite feels the same. You've always known Cairo was a city that could change you, but you didn't expect it to feel so personal, so intimate. Every corner you turn, every face you meet, now feels like part of the puzzle. Yet, for all the whispers in the air and the unspoken things you know are waiting to be uncovered, you still don't understand the full picture. You're still a stranger here, and the city's secrets, its true heart, remain just out of reach. After the encounter by the ancient stone structure, there's a shift in the way you move through Cairo. The weight of what the cloaked figure said hangs over you. The city will teach you. It always does. It's unsettling, that line. You've learned plenty already, and yet there's a gnawing feeling in your stomach, as if Cairo is preparing to show you something else, something even deeper and darker. You've been spending more time at the markets lately. Not for the goods, though there's still a part of you that's drawn to the trinkets, the spices, the stories in the stalls, but because you've begun to recognize the rhythm of this place. The ebb and flow of life here isn't just in the people, but in the very buildings themselves, in the layers of history that fold into each other like a massive, intricate map. You walk past stone walls that have witnessed the rise and fall of empires, past markets that have seen more goods and lives come and go than you could ever comprehend. As you stand in the market, the sunlight filtering through the dense crowd, you notice something curious. The vendors are quieter today. You can't remember the last time the place felt so still. Even the usual chatter of haggling seems muted, replaced by hushed voices and sidelong glances. You can almost hear the collective heartbeat of the city, its pulse slower, more deliberate. Then you see him again. The cloaked man. He's standing at the edge of the market, his figure a silhouette against the backdrop of the towering structures. His hood is pulled low, but his eyes, sharp, knowing, are unmistakable. The moment you lock eyes, something stirs deep inside you, an urge to understand, to demand more answers. You've been thinking about him ever since that moment near the outskirts of the city, and now he's here, like he's always been waiting for you, like his presence is some kind of answer you haven't yet figured out. You don't approach him immediately. Instead, you wait. The crowd moves around you, but your focus never leaves him. And after what feels like an eternity, he begins walking toward you, his steps measured and sure, as though he's always known you'd be here, in this very moment, in this very place. When he finally stops in front of you, there's no immediate greeting. Instead, he looks you over, his gaze searching, as if weighing something inside you. You've been thinking about this city, he says, his voice low but not unfriendly. About its power, its secrets. But there's something you don't understand yet. You swallow, the weight of his words sinking deep into you. You're not sure how much more you can take, how much more you can learn without losing yourself in the process. I don't understand much of anything anymore. You admit, your voice softer than you intended. This city, it's like it's constantly shifting, constantly changing. It feels like I'm chasing something, but every time I think I'm close, it slips away. The man nods, his expression unreadable. That's the nature of Cairo. It's not a place you can control. It controls you. A shiver runs down your spine. His words sound like a warning, but there's something more, something deeper in them that you can't quite grasp. You're right, he continues, as if reading your thoughts. You've been looking for answers. But answers are like sand in the wind here. One moment they're clear, the next they're gone. What you've been searching for isn't out there. It's inside you. And when you finally see it, when you finally understand it, you'll see the city for what it really is. You blink, trying to process what it's saying. It's cryptic, impossible to pin down. But a part of you knows he's speaking the truth. There's something about this city, something about its layers and its past that resonates with you. Like a song you can't remember but that you know you've heard before. I don't know if I can do this, you say, the words tasting like defeat. I don't know if I'm strong enough. The man tilts his head slightly, as if considering your doubt. It's not about strength. It's about acceptance. About surrendering to the city's pull. You don't control Cairo. But Cairo can teach you, if you let it. His eyes lock with yours for a moment, and for the briefest second, you see something flicker in them. A knowledge, a deep understanding of what you're going through. He doesn't say another word, but the silence between you speaks volumes. Without a single glance back, he turns and walks away, disappearing into the crowd as easily as he had appeared. For a moment, you stand still, lost in the lingering echo of his words. There's a quiet, almost serene finality to this encounter. You don't have all the answers, but for the first time since you arrived, you're not sure you need them. The city's pull is strong, and you've learned that you cannot fight it. All you can do is let it guide you. Let it teach you what you're meant to learn. As the sun sets behind the towering stone buildings, you feel the weight of the day lift off your shoulders. The shadows lengthen, and the city settles into the soft hum of evening. The winding streets, the markets, the forgotten corners, they're all part of something larger than you can comprehend, something ancient and alive. And maybe, just maybe, you're beginning to understand that your place here was never about fitting in. It's about learning to flow with the current, to accept the mysteries the city offers, even when they're beyond your grasp. Cairo is like the Nile itself, constant, unyielding, and timeless. And just like the river, it will carry you to places you never expected, to truths you never saw coming. For now, you're content to let it.